Hi everyone, welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're talking about cannabis again. Kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah.
It's an illegal drug, obviously.
In Taiwan.
In Taiwan. It's not in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
We're discussing lots of different things related to it for use in a debate in our For You activity for you. Now, yesterday we talked about the medical uses of cannabis, or we can say marijuana, we can say weed, various other names.
That's right. It's in the news today because people use it as what we would call recreational drug. They smoke marijuana like some people would drink a glass of wine or something like that. But it also has been used in medicine. And not just now we're talking about, but hundreds of years ago. In fact, in ancient China, back during the Tang Dynasty, they were using it to treat pain. If you hurt yourself, broken arm, for example, they might give you marijuana to take the pain away. And then in the Song Dynasty, they were using it. They were using it for mental health problems, epilepsy, depression. This is all a long, long time ago, right around this part of the world.
Yeah, and Western medicine has started to recognize the uses of cannabis for epilepsy, this kind of shaking fit. For depression, we can use it to manage pain, manage sleep problems, manage people's anxiety and kind of de-stress them out a bit. Fans of it have their own opinion of cannabis.
Yeah, people who use it more just for fun, they say it allows them to connect their minds and bodies together in a way that they can't do normally, or without doing a lot of yoga or something like that. And it can also help them to understand the world in new ways. I've heard of people who've had, emotional problems. They can have some cannabis and then it allows them to talk about their feelings.
That's all good.
Open up a little bit more. So, for people who have sort of difficult thoughts in their head, cannabis might help them calm down and sort through some of their problems. And yeah, I guess if the other ways don't work and that does work, that's a good thing.
Yep. However, cannabis is a drug, and like any drug, it has bad features. And that's what we're going to take a look at in part 2 of our article.
Reading.
The world's changing attitudes toward cannabis. Dr. Andrew Weil is a respected natural health doctor in the U.S. In the 1960s, he did the first scientific experiments on cannabis when he was in medical school. He enjoyed using it for many years, but eventually stopped because it made him feel lazy and tired too often. Country singer Willie Nelson had to quit smoking it after it ruined his lungs. He had to cancel concerts after developing breathing problems. Although cannabis cannot kill you, consuming too much at once can cause feelings of panic and extreme confusion. Those feelings can be even more frightening when it's baked in cookies and candy, a practice common in the West. Eating too much often leads to hours of feeling dizzy and disoriented, which causes feelings of terror. There's one important fact that teenagers should consider. Recent studies show that cannabis can be harmful to developing brains. It can not only affect learning and memory, but also cause some mood problems later in life. Doctors recommend holding off on cannabis use until age 25, when the human brain is fully formed.
All right, so let's have a look at the beginning of today's article. It talks about actually a well-known doctor from America, Dr. Andrew Weil. I think his name. Dr. Andrew Weil is a respected natural health doctor in the U.S. I believe he is a doctor.
Yeah.
He is an MD. He can call himself doctor, but he's not your typical doctor. He's more of a natural health doctor, the kind of doctor who wouldn't say, don't take those strong medicines, a bit more of a Chinese medicine type idea. Take natural things. Take things that you find or can grow in nature and keep your body healthy. Don't get cancer, and then you don't have to take the super strong cancer drugs. Stay healthy in the natural way. So that's something a lot of people believe in these days and are certainly interested in. And he's been doing this stuff for a number of years, looking at how cannabis can help people.
Exactly. We see in the article, in the 1960s, he did the first scientific experiments on cannabis when he was in medical school. So he didn't just kind of smoke a bit of it and see what happened. he may have too, but he was doing scientific experiments. If something is scientific, it's related to science.
Yes.
It's using proper method,
yes.
measuring things, how much, what happened, how long did it last. Let's repeat that whole experiment again and take down the results. And repeat it again with exactly the same method. That is scientific method. It's following real science, real kind of logic, and using that to come to a conclusion. For example, there is no scientific proof that aliens have visited the Earth.
There's lots of cool stories, and people say stuff and think stuff, but we haven't actually got them on film and, you know, that kind
There's
of thing.
There's no science we can point to and say, this science proves it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right, let's get back to this other word, experiment. All right, Pat kind of touched on this. When you're doing good science, when you're doing proper science, you have to test out your ideas in the real world. You might say, hey, if I do this, something good should happen. You don't just then tell everyone that something good's going to happen if you do this. No, you have to do experiments. And these are those tests. You measure out everything, you control everything, you repeat everything, and you should come out with the same result. If not, something strange that you didn't expect is going on.
But that's still a good result.
But that's still a good result because you learned something that is not necessarily true, but it could lead you to a better truth. Now, when scientists do experiments, they do them over many years. They trade information. They'll do the experiment in Taiwan and say, we found something interesting, and then send that same experiment or get people at Harvard to do the same thing. If they get the same result, now we're on the way to finding good results or good science. For example, we hope that this experiment will prove that time travel is possible.
I proved that tomorrow. Anyway, let's get back to the article.
Yes.
So Andrew Weil and his experiments with cannabis, his scientific experiments, we also see he enjoyed using it for many years. So presumably recreationally, just for fun.
Okay.
He enjoyed using it for many years, but eventually stopped because it made him feel lazy and tired too often. Okay, that's something I've heard about cannabis. It's something I've actually seen in people I've known.
Really?
Yeah, more of that towards the end of the article. But we see that he eventually stopped using cannabis. He stopped smoking it or eating it or whatever. Eventually is an adverb used to mean in the end, and it's after a long time has passed. And when we use this word, it indicates this is the conclusion or final result of an episode, the end of something. So there's nothing else that changed or happened differently after that. That's kind of the end of the story. Eventually, this was the result.
All right, back to the article. Here's another person who had some experience with using cannabis. Country singer Willie Nelson had to quit smoking it after it ruined his lungs.
Oh.
Wow, I didn't hear about that. Willie Nelson is a very famous country music singer and songwriter. If you haven't heard him, you've probably heard some of his songs. He was famous for being a big marijuana smoker, and he's old now, and he still performs, and he still sings, and that is something we need to point out. A lot of people who are using cannabis just for fun, they are smoking it. And if you think that smoking cigarettes is bad, well, smoking cannabis is bad too, maybe even worse than cigarettes. So, as a singer, as an older person, it can really damage your lungs, and that's no good.
Yeah, we see he had to cancel concerts after developing breathing problems.
I didn't know that.
He said, I can't sing tonight, I can't perform, and it looks like I've got some lung damage, which maybe comes back to smoking too much.
Interesting. So there you go. Too much of almost anything is not good for you. It says, although cannabis cannot kill you, consuming too much at once can cause feelings of panic and extreme confusion. Yeah, cannabis is not in the most dangerous class of drugs.
Nope.
Drugs you might have heard of, like heroin or cocaine. If you
Meth
take too much of those, your heart can stop and you can die very, very quickly, even before you can get to a hospital. Cannabis is not that strong, all right? So it won't kill you if you take too much, but if you do take, smoke, or consume, the word we use here, here too much, it can have bad effects on your body, effects you don't really want to mess with. Even if it doesn't kill you, it's certainly going to make your life not so enjoyable. Yeah, consume is a verb we often use to talk about things that we use up, all right? Now, it could be something very common like food. We consume food to give our bodies energy, okay? But I could also say, oh, this factory consumes a lot of oil or consumes a lot of electricity or consumes a lot of, material to make their stuff. They put it in, they use it up in some kind of way, and then they need more to keep on going, all right? So we can use consume to cover a lot of different verbs, but it basically means we're putting something in order to get an effect or a result. For example, you shouldn't consume any food before you take this medicine. I don't want to say you shouldn't eat food or drink water or drink milk, or just don't consume anything. Eat or drink before the medicine.
Exactly. And if you consume too much cannabis at once, it could have negative effects. The phrase at once means at one time or in one single event. So eating lots of food at once means during one meal, not 3 hours later or earlier. It's all the food you eat at that one time.
So we read there that cannabis might not kill you, but consuming or using too much could cause feelings of panic, all right? Panic, this noun, is when your mind kind of runs away and you lose control of yourself. It means you're very, very frightened. You're in great danger. When people panic, they kind of stop thinking and they react more like a frightened animal might, okay? So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you smell smoke in your apartment, you're probably not going to sit up and go, I smell smoke. I wonder where that smoke is coming from. Perhaps I should get out of bed and find out. No, you're going to go, it's smoke, there's fire, and you're going to start screaming and yell and wake up everyone and open the window and Now, panic can be very dangerous in a dangerous situation. It is good to calm down and think carefully, but when we're in danger, when we're afraid for our lives, it is quite normal for people to panic because we're really, really frightened. For example, the sounds of the fire alarm sent the passengers on the boat into a panic. The boat's on fire? What do you mean the boat's on fire? We have to get on the boat! And people are freaking out. They are panicking.
So that's one bad effect of taking in too much cannabis
That's not fun.
At one time. We have another. We talked about extreme confusion. So extreme means to a great degree. Not a little bit of confusion, not even a medium amount of confusion. A huge amount, a massive amount. For example, if you ate an extreme amount of food, that would be a lot of food. If someone's anger is extreme, they're super angry. And here's another example. The cold in Russia can be extreme during the winter. So not a little bit cold, not like put on an extra coat cold, but you could die. It's that cold.
Yes, very, very, very cold. All right, and we also mentioned there extreme confusion. Confusion is basically when you don't understand what's going on around you. Yeah, exactly. You remember I gave that example of if you wake up at night and you smell smoke? Well, for the first few seconds, you'll be like, where am I? What's going on? What's happening? And then you realize, oh, I'm at home, I'm in my bed, and I smell smoke. But those first moments, you can't really collect and gather your ideas. All these things are bouncing around in your head, and basically you don't understand what's going on. Now that would be an extreme form of confusion, waking up in a panic. But if you're watching a movie from another country and there's no subtitles and you don't understand the language, you'll have a feeling of confusion. What are they talking about? Is he the good guy? Who's that guy? What's going on? Because you just don't understand. You can't make sense of it in your brain.
Now the article continues and says those feelings can be even more frightening when cannabis is baked in cookies and candy, a practice common in the West. That's right, we've talked a lot about smoking it, but people bake it in cookies, brownies, and all kinds of things to eat as another way to get the effects.
Because
and it seems
smoking's bad for you.
Yeah, and this in fact seems to give stronger effects.
Interesting. Well, I guess it would be like biting into a cookie. You don't know how much sugar is in there until you taste it. So often if you're, putting something in food, you don't really know what's in there until it's actually in your body. So yes, avoid doing doing that unless you really know what you're doing. Eating too much often leads to hours of feeling dizzy and disoriented, which causes feelings of terror. You're going to feel confused, you might have feelings of panic, and again, people are supposed to be doing this for fun. That doesn't sound like fun to me. Yeah, we had that adjective disoriented, okay? Disoriented is kind of like confusion, what we talked about before. You don't understand what's going on. You're not quite sure where you are, possibly. Disoriented is also a bit more about the place, the location that you're in. If you go to a new city and you walk around with no GPS, with no map, not really knowing where you're going, and you just sort of walk around for 2 hours, well, after a time, you will be disoriented. Is the hotel? Did we go left or right? I don't know where I am. I'm lost. And you're lost because you're disoriented, because you don't know which is north, south. You don't know where the park is compared to the hotel. You're lost. You're confused. You have no sense of direction.
Now, if you're experiencing all of that, you're confused, you're dizzy, you don't know where you are, who you are,
what's happening to me?
What's going on. In these situations, you're likely to feel terror. Yeah, terror is extreme fear. We use the word extreme, so it's a large amount. Fear is being frightened. Terror is being super crazy frightened. You know, maybe a cockroach or a spider might frighten you, but falling out of a plane, that would cause you to feel terror. You would feel terrified, to use the adjective form.
Very, very scared. All right, back to the article. Here's something that is really worth remembering. There's one important fact that teenagers should consider. And here we're saying teenagers as just another way of saying young people in general. So there is something about cannabis or marijuana that really would affect young people more than others. And this is something you should think about very carefully. And that is?
Recent studies show that cannabis can be harmful to developing brains. So our brains are still learning, they're constantly kind of making new connections, and that continues kind of into our early adulthood, I guess.
Early 20s?
Yeah, something like that. So if they're still developing, then cannabis could harm that development.
Interesting. So it can not only affect learning and memory, but also cause some mood problems later in life. So for young people, the dangers of cannabis are probably a bit greater than for older people, because older people's brains are kind of fully grown and fully set. Young people, they're still learning, their great brains are still growing. And if you're studying, if you're trying to, be a good student and learn things at that point in your life, it could make things a lot harder for you. And later in life, you could have mood problems. You could have emotional problems, because when we use the word mood, this noun, we're basically talking about your emotional state, how you feel. How are you feeling? I'm feeling worried. That's my mood. I'm feeling angry. That's my mood. I'm feeling totally happy. Everything's fine. I'm in a good mood. I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a worried mood. Okay, so it changes through the day. It changes through what's happening in your life. We try to be in a good mood, but sometimes things happen and you get into a bad mood. For example, I think Barry's in a bad mood. I just heard him yell at his computer.
Yeah, I yell at my computer a lot. It doesn't do what I want it to do.
It doesn't change though.
Nope. Okay, so because of this, we see in the article, doctors recommend holding off on cannabis use until age 25, when the human brain is fully formed.
That's probably good advice. And I'd say, drinking wine or alcohol like that is also something you might want to hold off on until later on. These things are not healthy for your body necessarily.
So there we saw the verb recommend. If you recommend something, you strongly suggest it as a piece of advice. It's a sensible thing to do. You can also recommend a thing by saying, this is a good choice or a good idea. You could recommend a restaurant. Go to that one, it's great. So what doctors are recommending is people hold off on using cannabis until they're 25.
I think that's not a bad bit of advice. Definitely, you're just delaying something. When you hold off on something or hold off on doing something, you're maybe going to do it, but a little bit further down the line, a little bit further into the future than you might have planned at first, okay? So, for example, if you're planning a holiday this weekend and you're thinking of booking hotels or something, your friend might say, oh, there might be a typhoon this weekend, so hold off on making those reservations. It's Monday today. Let's wait until tomorrow or Wednesday. Then we'll know if the typhoon is coming or if it's going to change direction. So delay it. Push it back a little bit. We'll still do it, but a little bit later than we first planned. Let's hold off on that.
Right, so that is some of the bad points of cannabis. We've heard the good in day one. We talked a bit about the legal stuff. We've heard some of the negative things today. Let's kind of bring things together in today's chat question.
For you chat.
Okay, so our debate today is all going to be about what could be done with cannabis. Should it continue to be illegal? Should it be maybe made legal like in Canada? Or should it be what we call decriminalized? Made into, okay, this is not as serious a drug as other drugs, so you won't get punished so much for having a very small amount. How do you feel about the whole thing?
Well, I mean, it's really complicated because, you know, what might be okay for some people might be dangerous for other people. That's why it's hard to make laws about this. But I do remember seeing some interviews with police, and they kind of were saying, we have no problem with cannabis. People drink too much beer and they get in fights in the bars. And of course, dangerous drugs like heroin or cocaine, those can kill people. Those can really ruin lives. And a lot of police, I've noticed in Canada and other places, I've seen them interviewed on TV are like, you know, we don't really worry about people who smoke cannabis because they don't commit crimes and they don't hurt other people. And, you know, I know some relatives of mine have had problems with drinking too much, and that can really destroy people's lives, but we sell it everywhere. So it kind of makes you go, but this other thing is less dangerous, so I don't know. But you know, young people, maybe it's not so good for them to be using it. It is a complicated question.
Yeah, it's like they did in the States, for example, decades ago, they tried to ban alcohol, but people just drank it anyway.
They made their own and it was dangerous.
Yeah, and if they make cannabis illegal, people will still smoke it and they'll commit crimes in terms of buying and selling it. Gangs will fight about it.
That's true
If you make it legal, you might be able to avoid a lot of those issues, control it through the government, through licensed sellers, and tax it and make money for the government.
That's what a lot of places in the West are doing now. Yeah.
Exactly. On the other hand, to be honest, it's like the whole thing is not for me. I knew some people who smoked it at school, and I felt that it did make them a little bit less ambitious. They were more intelligent than me. They were very smart people, but maybe they didn't really kind of push themselves to their limits because they got into marijuana when their brains were developing.
So like the article said, kind of made them lazy and less ambitious.
They'd held off until they were 25 and sort of learned a bit more about what they wanted to do with their lives and then made a more educated adult decision about whether they want to use it as a recreational drug. But then, you know, I don't plan on making laws for anybody. I'm kind of, if you want to do it, then you can do it.
It's one of those...
Let's make it safe.
Yeah, it's one of those complicated questions that, you know, wise people hopefully will be able to find the answer to, because there are many different sides to this debate. And that's why we encourage you guys to use your own ideas, maybe do some research, listen to what we've been talking about and reading about, and have your own debate. Make up your own mind on this complicated issue.
All right, we'll leave you guys to do that in our activity for you, but we're done teaching. So for English for You, I'm Pat.
I'm Mike.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.
The world's changing attitudes toward cannabis. Dr. Andrew Weil is a respected natural health doctor in the U.S. In the 1960s, he did the first scientific experiments on cannabis when he was in medical school. He enjoyed using it for many years, but eventually stopped because it made him feel lazy and tired too often. Country singer Willie Nelson had to quit smoking it after it ruined his lungs. He had to cancel concerts after developing breathing problems. Although cannabis cannot kill you, consuming too much at once can cause feelings of panic and extreme confusion. Those feelings can be even more frightening when it's baked in cookies and candy. a practice common in the West. Eating too much often leads to hours of feeling dizzy and disoriented, which causes feelings of terror. There's one important fact that teenagers should consider. Recent studies show that cannabis can be harmful to developing brains. It can not only affect learning and memory, but also cause some mood problems later in life. Doctors recommend holding off on cannabis use until age 25, when the human brain is fully formed.
Vocabulary Review.
Scientific. A professor in Hualien did a scientific study of earthquakes to find out how often they occur in the region. Experiment. An experiment was done on the new food product to make sure it was safe before it was sold to customers. Consume. Vicky is worried that her children consume too much sugar in their drinks and snacks. Panic. The little boy felt strong panic when he got lost and couldn't find his mother in the store. Extreme. Last year, Australia's summer had extreme heat, with temperatures reaching 49.9 degrees Celsius in one part of the country. Mood. Getting an excellent grade on his math test put William in a good mood for the rest of the day.
字汇小补帖
Eventually. Confusion. Disoriented. Terror. Recommend.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net